Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Kaelaris, the host of the PMWL East, and we are going to take a look back on everything that went down throughout week number 3 and break it down just for you at home, just in case you missed it, or if you want a little bit of a refresher before we go into the grand finals here for East. So, first things first, let's start off with how everybody qualified on into that first super weekend. We had, as usual, BIGETRON Red Aliens looking phenomenal, getting themselves the first place in the first 2 days of competition here in week 3. However, to some surprise, but not too much surprise, because we keep seeing King of Games Club stepping on up again and again and again, they were able to take the second place position going in. Now, there are some names in here that really made a run for it towards the last week's standings. Morph Team and You Level Up definitely put up big numbers to begin week 3 and try and get themselves in a decent spot for eventually qualifying potentially to the grand final, especially for a Morph Team. It was very important for them to try their very best in this last super weekend. So getting a third place for the first 2 days, extremely respectable. And of course, as we look down there, some other names that didn't do as well as you would normally consider: Orange Rock, Box Gaming, RRQ Athena, getting themselves a middling pack position, but that is going to be by the by. Now let's take a look at our bottom side as well and see which teams did not qualify into our third super weekend. Unfortunately, for Freestyle, Reject Scarlet, No Chance Team, and Synergy, they were not able to put up the performances required to get themselves into that third super weekend. And later on down the line, of course, we will take a look at how these teams were able to fare and if they stayed alive coming out of that super weekend going into the grand final. All right, so that is our first 2 days done. Let's now look at the super weekend and see everything that went down throughout that. We had a nail-biter of a super weekend. That is playing it down, to say the least. BIGETRON eventually was able to seize that first place spot across all 3 super weekends. However, it was by no means easy, no means a small feat, because Box Gaming and RRQ Athena were constantly jostling for position in that #1 position. And do bear in mind as well that all of these positions now mean that the money is distributed from our regular season's play. So, congratulations, of course, to BIGETRON for gaining themselves $50,000 for that first place prize. However, you've got to give it to teams like Box Gaming, for example, who did so well when it came to placement, consistency, the box fort, as Frost would call it, as well as John over on the caster's desk. RRQ Athena was doing phenomenally well throughout a lot of our super weekends, however, just fell short at the last hurdle and will be settled with a third place here. Now, what is very interesting about our top 10, of course, is that we spoke about it on the desk at the very end of our last super weekend day, is that we feel anybody in this top 10 could take the grand final, given a good run in those last 4 days. Every single team here has proved their ability and their tenacity to be able to seize that top spot, so it is going to be extremely interesting going into our grand final. Let's take a look down further as well then and see which teams, of course, will not be gracing us with their presence in that grand final, as unfortunately for Freestyle, Morph Team, Nova Godlike, and No Chance Team, they will be not joining us in that grand final. For Reject Scarlet and Synergy, those 2 teams that did not qualify into our last super weekend, it was a little bit rougher for them to try and get themselves into that grand final. However, they stay alive and will try and perform in that grand final as well. So that is our super weekend. That was week 3 super weekend, and it was a phenomenal one. It really was. The second day was a little bit weird. Some of the games were a bit strange, a bit all over the place, but the last day delivered in spades. If you missed it, you want to go back and check out those games. Team Secret started off very strongly as well, so a big nod of the head to them. Now, let's focus on the team that was able to be victorious here throughout our regular season. BIGETRON Red Aliens, the complete package, the kings on the throne. Microboy, Luxy, Ryzen, Zuxi. Every single facet of this team came together to be able to get themselves the #1 spot. Of course, at the beginning of our week 3 super weekend, they did not have the easiest time. They were having middling results, not really being able to put up the chicken dinners. But by the end, the very last game, even the very last fight, They needed at least a second place and 6 kills to be able to get themselves the #1 spot. And oh boy, did they not just do that, they also took the chicken dinner in the very last game as well. It was brilliant to watch. Again, I've already said go back and watch this, go back and watch this, but you should go back and watch that game. Now let's take a look at our top 10 killers as well, as there's a lot of BIGETRON names in there, but there's also a lot of names from the likes of RRQ Athena and Jonathan actually up in that 4th spot. We'll talk about our top 4 later. As you can see, our 5 through 10, you've got Ryzen, Yuhai, Martin, Beer, Gil, and Ernie being able to put themselves in a great, great spot. For Orange Rock, it was, again, having a bit of a tough time gaining traction on the lobby in some of the last weeks, especially when it comes to the first week where they were on the minds of everyone, trying to rival the BTRs. They were the chasers, they were the usurpers to the throne. But if they want to kind of live up to that title, they're going to have to step it up a little bit more in that grand finals. So let's take a closer look at our top 4 when it comes to the names in question and the kills that they were able to put up, because all of these names have put up an amazing performance throughout the PMWL East. We have Luxy, we have Zuxi, the twins of course, we have G9, our MVP from week 1, and Jonathan, our MVP from week 2. So a star-studded roster. If you want to give me a fantasy roster to put together, this might be the names, as they were able to do so much throughout PMWL East. So kudos to them once again for being so impactful on the lobby, especially G9, who I think had a 1,500 damage game throughout Super Weekend number 3. Amazing stuff. Now, that brings us very neatly on to who is going to be our MVP player of week 3. Well, I can tell you, it's a repeat name. It is Jonathan. Not only did he take week 2, but also he took week 3 as well. Congratulations, Jonathan, for taking yet another MVP title. And now, with 2 MVP titles back-to-back under his belt, will he be aiming for MVP of the entire tournament? One could only wonder. He is one of the big names to try and strive for that. However, there's going to be some big contenders along the way for him in other teams. Well, that does it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me on this journey once again to recap everything that went down in week 3. We shall see you for more PMWL East in the grand finals. But before we do that, let's take a look back at week 3 and some of the highlights.